Okay, we are presenting. I hope everybody can see my screen okay and everyone can hear me. My name is John Sasala. I am the president of Mori Creative Studios. We are a HubSpot partner agency and we are the hug leader for our New York City chapter. So welcome. This is our Q3 event for the New York City Hug. So as people join in, thanks for coming back. Thanks for joining us. Hoping to have some new people joining us here today. I know we have about 60 people registered, so hopefully we have a good turnout. Today's conversation is going to be around web accessibility, the risks, rewards, and remediations. This is going to be a little bit different than our typical get-together in that it's a workshop. It's going to be a recorded workshop because we are going to get pretty deep into web accessibility, not just talking about it theoretically, but looking at the issues that a HubSpot website could potentially have and looking at how we can actually go about fixing those. So wanted to mention that Mori Creative Studios, not only are we a HubSpot partner agency, but we are also a founding partner of a program, a platform called Inclusion Hub. Inclusion Hub is a resource center. It's a resource center of listings of businesses that focus on accessibility and diversity. It's also a lot of really great content from thought leaders and advocates. And not only is that something that we're a partner of, we also have a couple partners that share the founding member designation, Salesforce being the first one there on the bottom left. Salesforce has a really incredible internal accessibility and inclusion department headed by Thomas Franz. And they're one of the founding partners behind this endeavor, this Inclusion Hub endeavor. So is Be My Eyes. Be My Eyes is a platform that is designed to connect blind people with the sighted people. So using like a FaceTime type situation to connect folks. I just need to pause 1 second. Yeah, so these three organizations, we've all gotten together and built out Inclusion Hub, being this resource center. So I want to encourage you to check that out. This is a passion of ours at Mori Creative Studios. The reason that we're a founding partner is we build digital properties, we build websites, and those websites need to be made accessible. So it's just something that we've long been passionate about, and the reason that we got involved with Inclusion Hub over there. So digging in, we're going to look at our agenda for today. Starting with some key concepts, just some definitions around what digital accessibility is. We're going to look at the risks of not addressing your accessibility, the rewards of addressing digital accessibility, and then, like I said, that workshop portion where we're going to look at some remediations. We're actually looking at 10 common issues that websites might have and how we can fix them on a HubSpot website. And hopefully we have some time at the end there for some questions, and I'll have some links that I'm going to share with you as well. So let's talk about Ally, A11Y. What is that? Ally is actually a numeronym. It's shorthand for the word accessibility. So as you're getting comfortable with accessibility and doing your research, you might come across this little shorthand in the names of businesses or just in content that you're discovering, and it stands for the first letter A and the last letter Y with 11 characters in between. So if you leave this conversation today with nothing else, at least now you understand this cute little numeronym. Speaking of acronyms, there are a lot of acronyms that you might come across when getting familiar with digital accessibility. Everything highlighted here in green, these are laws. You might hear about ADA compliance or Section 508 compliance, the AODA or CCPA. The ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Section 508 is, going back to ADA. The ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, where when it was first written, it was applying to the physical world, making sure that we were not discriminating against people with disabilities. Then Section 508 is something similar, but it pertains to anybody who receives federal funding. AODA is the Accessibility of Ontarians with Disabilities Act, so applies to anybody who employs people in Ontario or services people in Ontario or operates out of Ontario. And then the CCPA, I think we're all familiar with, is the California Consumer Protection Act or Privacy Act. The last one that's highlighted there in orange is the WCAG. You might hear that. It's also referred to as Wcag. WCAG is not a law, but it is a list of success criteria. It's a list of things that we can do to make our digital properties accessible. And that's really the most important one on the screen. If you're WCAG compliant, that means you're compliant with all these other laws that are above. So WCAG is really what we want to focus on. I've got up here on the screen a table that's showing the types of disabilities. When we're talking about addressing the accessibility of our websites, it's for people who might have disabilities. And it's not just the typical blind or deaf community. Down the left-hand side, we're looking at the different categories. So those being vision, hearing, cognitive, mobility, motor, and emotional. And then across the top, the spectrum of maybe a time frame that somebody might be dealing with these disabilities. So it can be a lifelong disability, like being born blind, or an acquired disability, a chronic disability, something that comes back frequently, a temporary disability, or just a situational disability. And the reason why this is fun to look at is to understand that when we're building more accessible products, it's not just for the people on the far left that were born blind, born deaf, live with autism. When you address your digital properties, if you're fixing things for somebody who's born blind, you're also fixing it for somebody who's in a situation that they might not be able to see. So the example here we have is driving. Maybe you're trying to consume a video. If you're a blind person, it's important that you describe things in that video with audio descriptions, not just the dialogue that can be heard, but describing things that are happening in the video that are not communicated with audio. Well, that also benefits somebody who's driving and listening to a video, being able to consume all of the video, not just what's being said or what can be heard. This chart here was actually provided by our friends over at Be My Eyes. It was a presentation that they had put on that we pulled from them, so we want to thank them for that. Understanding disability, the different spectrum of disabilities, we can better relate with it if you think about yourself. How have you ever had a bad web experience? Have you ever gone to like an e-commerce site and put a product in a shopping cart and tried to check out? But every time you hit that buy now button, nothing happens. It doesn't show you a success message. It's a bad web experience. Well, that type of a web experience happens to people with disabilities all the time. There's an organization called WebAIM that puts together a report every year called the WebAIM Million, where they systematically go through and check the 1 million most trafficked websites for systematically discoverable errors, color contrast errors or links without descriptions or images without descriptions. And of the 1 million most trafficked websites, something like 95 or 98% of them all have issues on them. So the problems that you might experience once in a while, well, those are on every single website for people with disabilities, just to give you an idea of the spectrum of how big of an issue this is. To also understand, let's look at some specific examples. On the left-hand side here, I've got color contrast noted in orange and a light green mint color it might be right in line with my brand book. It might represent, the colors of my company, but that green on top of white is not a high enough color contrast. So that means people who maybe are with low vision or color blindness, they're not going to be able to consume that content. And then below that, where it says rigid layout, somebody who can't see that content might increase their computer's font size. And by increasing it, if the website isn't built properly, the layout can break. And you can see how this dark blue color now flows over a dark blue background, and it's still not legible, so still inaccessible. On the right-hand side, we've got a form. And forms are one of the most common things that present issues to people with disabilities. And it's also one of the most common things that's cited in lawsuits, because if you can't interact with a form properly, then that's such a clear example of not being able to be serviced. So for this pop-up here, if my keyboard can't get focus on that pop-up form, with a mouse, I can just go to the upper right and I can click on that X. If I'm using a keyboard to navigate around a website, or if I'm using a screen reader, or if I'm using a switch, if I can never get focus on that form, I can never get it to go away. Or the only way to get it to go away is fill out the form, and I didn't want to fill out the form. Other examples of issues on that top row there, that first name. A lot of people using HubSpot websites are guilty of this. They remove the label. They take the label off because design-wise, I just wanted the purpose of that field to be inside of it in that preview text. Well, that makes it invisible to somebody who's using assistive technology. Or the second line there where company is in light gray. Design-wise, we might want it to be a lighter color, but that makes it hard for somebody who is low vision or has problem with sight to consume exactly what that field is for. The third line there, where the red line is around that required field, if that's the only thing that's indicating that that field is required, someone who's colorblind, that red looks exactly like the gray of the other ones. Or whenever you display an error message, not being clear with what the error is, invalid, input not valid, please try again. That doesn't explain why is it invalid. So maybe somebody with cognitive issues needs to know, please enter 9-digit phone number. You need to be clearer. And then the bottom example there is a missing button label. If you don't have a label on a button, somebody will never know how to actually submit that form. So just a couple examples. I've got a few more on this next slide here. On the left-hand side, this website has 7 items in the top navigation. And each of those navigation items might have a drop-down with 20 options inside of there. So when I get to this website, I'm going to tab through and I get to the categories and I go down to the category that I want. And I just had to tab through a lot of content to get there. And as soon as I hit the category that I want, it's going to load a new page and I have to tab through all of that navigation again. We need to build in the ability for people to skip over blocks of content like that. Otherwise, it's just a bad experience. We make them really, it just slows down their ability to navigate around a website. On the right-hand side, we've got a video. So we had mentioned audio descriptions being things that are not communicated with, verbally or audibly, need to be described. So maybe you can hear someone walking in the woods and they come upon something in the woods. Somebody should say, even though it's not in the dialogue of the movie, a third person comes in and says, John walking through the woods comes across Bunny. On the left in that area where it says video captions, we all know what video captions are. To make our videos more accessible for the deaf community, we need to have captions describing what's going on. It's going to describe the audio or the dialogue that's going back and forth between two people. But if there's something else that's non-dialogue, like in this example, fire alarm sounds while nobody reacts, well, that's not going to get picked up by an auto-transcribed YouTube video. So it needs to be added into the descriptions, making sure that you're covering everything, not just the dialogue. And then the bottom right-hand side there, I've got letter spacing. I wanted spaces in between those letters. I wanted it to have this nice wide design. So I used the space bar. But by doing that, I'm affecting the way that assistive technology is going to deliver that information. I'm affecting the way that that's going to be read. It's going to be read L-E-T-T-E-R. That doesn't read the word. So letter spacing should be handled with styling, not with spaces. Same thing with like indents, or if you want to have some type of design effect, you can't use a space bar or a tab bar because that's going to affect the way that assistive technology interacts with content. So now that we understand a bit of what people with disabilities are confronted with when visiting a website, let's talk about the risks of ignoring it. So if you don't address these things, the biggest risk I think most people are familiar with is the legal implications. And there's an organization called UsableNet. UsableNet is an agency that helps make digital properties more accessible. They have some training, they have some testing tools. They put together a report twice a year. This is pulled from their mid-year report that was released, I think, in July, to give us an idea of what the lawsuits look like. Every single lawsuit that is filed that cites the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, they note it and they note the information. Who was the plaintiff? What was the about? What was the outcome? And you can see on the right-hand side, the increase in cases. So in 2018, just over 2,000 cases. And now it looks like in 2021, we're about to top 4,000 cases. So increasing the volume of lawsuits that are being filed. On the left-hand side, that 4,000 cases equates to about 70 to 90 lawsuits that are filed every single week, which is substantial. There's a lot going on in this space. 20% of these filed cases are on the state level and 80% are on the federal level. And then this bullet point saying California and New York dominate the total cases filed, 81%. That's because California and New York both make it much easier for people to file these lawsuits. There's like an Unruh Act in California and something in New York that I think one of the stipulations is if the person wins, the defendant has to pay the plaintiff's legal fees. So there are reasons that California and New York dominate in this space. We also find that there are clusters. So when a bunch of lawsuits are happening, they happen specifically in the college space or in medical practice space or the automotive companies. And there's a reason that they seem to happen in these trends. And that's the last two bullet points, the most important bullet points, things to know. There, of all the lawsuits that are filed, of 80% of the lawsuits, it's 12 plaintiff firms that are filing them. That means these are firms that specialize in bringing accessibility case. It's not necessarily somebody had a bad situation, so they decided to bring a lawsuit. There's a law firm that specializes this, and they find their category, they make a spreadsheet of businesses, and they give them to, the last bullet point there, 20 plaintiffs. There are 20 humans that are in 59% of the lawsuits. So their job is to, good morning, punching into work. Let me look at my list of automotive companies. Let me go look at their websites and let me try and find accessibility issues. Now that's just so eye-opening. And it seems, really nefarious. It seems like it's like exploitation. But I do want to give credit to these companies that bringing these lawsuits, it's bringing our attention to the fact that accessibility is an issue and that we need to prioritize it. So there is a little bit of good that comes out of these 12 law firms and these 20 plaintiffs. Just wanted to note that. Other slides pulled from that report. Industry leaderboard. I want to say, not surprisingly, about 75% of the companies that are sued are e-commerce companies. And again, going back to the forum idea, e-commerce is such an easy way to communicate or to prove that somebody was discriminated against. So of the 25% of the balance, it's broken down here on the right-hand side by different industries. I also wanted to point out that digital media and agencies is close to 5%. So the second largest. I think that's related to the fact that digital agencies are the ones building these websites. So it's not necessarily the company, but it's the partners, the agencies that are building the websites that are being held accountable more and more. So just something to note. And then one last slide. When we think about the types of companies that are being sued, you assume that they're these large organizations with very deep pockets, but that's actually not the case. And it's shifting to these smaller and smaller organizations. So the beginning of 2020, it was about 50% were companies with 50 million in revenue or more, and 50% with less than 50 million in revenue. That's actually doubled this year. One of the reasons that UsableNet points to as a possible explanation is larger companies have already been sued. They've already taken care of their accessibility issues, and now it's time to move on to smaller and smaller organizations. And another reason why there might be this increase is related to the pandemic and everybody, being stuck at home. A lot of e-commerce stores gaining popularity. So smaller startup e-commerce companies also now being cited. And when you think of it that way, those are legitimate lawsuits. Those are people that are legitimately having problems checking out, and it's bringing our attention to them. So again, this was a presentation that was pulled from UsableNet. Excellent organization. You can find them in the Inclusion Hub directory, but I have here on the right-hand side, they're putting together a webinar tomorrow. You join me here, you love webinars. They're doing a webinar tomorrow called A Practical Guide to Web Accessibility in the Law. So if you want to learn more about the legal side of this, I encourage you to check that out. I'll share this link at the end of the conversation, and we'll send it out to everybody afterwards. But yeah, that's tomorrow, 12 o'clock our time. So we talked about point number one here, the lawsuits and the legal fees, but we didn't cover the demand letters. There's another risk. It's estimated that about 100% more companies deal with demand letters than actually go to court. So if there were 4,000 lawsuits that were actually filed this year, there were probably 400,000 companies that received a demand letter, which is essentially an attorney sending you a letter saying, hey, looks like your digital properties are inaccessible. We're going to take you to court unless you're willing to settle with us now. So an even bigger issue that you hear of a lot of companies receiving these demand letters, it never goes to court. And then if it does go to court, another risk here is that negative publicity and attention that your company is going to get. Nobody wants to have to defend themselves against discriminating against people. If you're going to court, that means you're saying, I'm fighting back against this, and nobody wants that type of negative publicity. And then the last 2 points, I put them on here as risks. The loss of potential business. So servicing people that you're not necessarily able to get money from, or not servicing people, or the loss of potential talent, not attracting more and more of the top tier of people that might want to join your organization. Those are on here as risks, but they're also on here as rewards. Jumping over here, look at the top two. The rewards of addressing your digital accessibility is growing your market share, new opportunities, more people you can service, and a lot more people, as we're going to get into. We've also got attracting better talent, the positive publicity and attention that you can get, the SEO benefits, which I love. It's such an offshoot fun topic of this, but it's real, it's tangible. And then the reward of feeling good because you're doing your part. As you get to understand these things, you're doing your part to make the internet. So starting with the first one, growing your market share and servicing more people. I've got on the screen here a slide of a ramp. Now the ADA, like I said, back in 1990, when it came out, it required that all businesses, all buildings, put ramps wherever there were stairs. So if you, if people need to get in and they're in a wheelchair, they've got a ramp, they've got curb cuts, doors are wider to let wheelchairs through, countertops are lower, bathrooms needed to be rearranged. Elevators needed to be put in. Like so many of these things came out of the ADA. And now that the internet is a thing, the internet was not part of the conversation back in 1990. It is today. We live our lives on the internet, and the ADA now applies to the internet. So we need to put our ramps on our websites. We need to widen our websites' doors and put the elevators in our websites. And to look at the volume of people that we're helping when we're doing these things, when we're putting those elevators on websites. It's estimated that at least 1 billion people, 15% of the world's population, have a recognized disability. They identify as a person with disability. That's a metric that was pulled from 2018. I don't think it's changed much, but it was pulled from the W3C, which stands for the World Wide Web Consortium. This report can be found at w3.org. I'm going to share this as well. But also considering not just people, that 15% of people that identify as a person with disability, also the population that's aging. As we all get older, as I get older, I'm losing my hearing, I'm losing my sight. Many more people become disabled and they don't necessarily identify as a person with a disability. So this extended market, both of those two markets, the aging population and those that identify, it's estimated that that is a 2.3 billion volume of people who control an incremental 6.9 trillion in annual disposable income. So the money is there. And if you're looking for the business case for accessibility, there it is. You can service more people, you can make more people. And it's not just those people. When you do these things to fix your properties and signal to the world that you have morals and good intentions, it's going to open up opportunities for people who have loved ones that are disabled, or people who just recognize that they're better companies that they want to align with. So that's the idea of servicing more people. Going back to attracting better talent, when you document your inclusive programs, this is something that will really strengthen your company culture and send the right signals to attract the right people. You're letting the world know that you have a compass and you're following and you're sticking to it. And I think that can help attract just a better class of people. Talking about the positive publicity and attention that you can get from this. If you document your accessibility journey, if you put it out to the world, we're implementing a digital accessibility program starting today. These are the things that we intend on hitting over the next few months and years. Some people feel like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to admit my failures. I don't want to admit that I've been discriminating against people. It's not that. You're not admitting your failures. You're acknowledging that you can do better. And I think that nobody's going to fault you for that. And then the SEO benefits. When you address your digital accessibility, you're cleaning up your code. You're looking at the code of your website and saying, okay, people with disabilities or people using assistive technology, they need to access the code of the site. So I don't need to just worry about what it looks like on a screen. I need to worry about what it looks like in the code. And cleaner code is better for discoverability. When you clean up your code, you can get indexed better. Search engines will know better what you do. And it opens up these new opportunities. The world is changing and we digest content in different ways. I use my Amazon Alexa at home all day long. I think I talk to her more than I talk to my wife. When you address your digital accessibility, it makes your properties accessible for maybe voice devices. So many SEO benefits. I think we're going to see more and more of that as time goes on. And it's really a side benefit here. And then the last one, like I said, feel good. You can only control what you can control. You can't fix the entire internet for everybody, but you can fix the part that you own, your little corner of the internet. So feel good about that. And with that, tried to rush through that, but that brings us to the workshop portion of this conversation today, remediations. We're going to identify on a HubSpot website issues. We're going to show you tools that you can use to find issues on your websites, and we're going to look at fixing them. So I've got this link here, moreycreative.com/ally demo. Also got this open here already. And we're going to dive right in. Now, I had mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that this is recorded, and we're going to share it with you. This is a recording because you can't necessarily do all the things that I'm doing along with me. Or maybe you're not even responsible for touching your code and managing the back end of your website. I want this recording to be shared with your developers, to be shared with your designers, to be shared with those who are responsible for organizing your content, because they can look through and understand, here are the things that are on my website that I can fix. So starting out on this page, again, it's on the More Creative website, built specifically with accessibility issues. And to identify those issues, this top section, we're gonna look at 2 different tools that we can use. These accessibility testing tools. Both of these are free. On the left-hand side, we've got Wave. Again, that company, WebAIM, that does that WebAIM million report. They also have this free auditing tool. If we click that, opens it up, and you see there's a little area where we can put in one specific page. It doesn't check an entire website, though they do have a paid version and paid services where you can do a site-wide scan. What we're going to do is we're going to scan this specific URL. So placing that in there, running a scan. And this is looking at that page and identifying the backend code different issues. And you can see them organized in a few different ways over here. The really egregious things are set up as errors. And then we've got some contrast issues. Excuse me. We've got some alerts, so things to maybe investigate, and then features and ARIA are pointing out, hey, looks like you're doing something right, or this just happens to be a certain type of element. If I view details by clicking here, these are now organized. If I click on this, we've got the very first egregious error, empty form label. When I click on that, it takes me down to it, and it blinks. So this is that empty form label right here. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. And if I click on this, it tells me a form label is present, but does not contain any content. And if I click on code, it'll show me the code, and we would see that the label is actually blank. So great, this is bringing my attention to that. I can then go and fix that issue and then rerun the scan, and this would then be gone. Next one here, empty links. If I click on this, it brings me up to those empty links, and I see we've got social links here, but they're empty. They don't look empty to me. I mean, that is clearly an Instagram icon. But that icon doesn't have any actual text inside of it. So when assistive technology gets to that, it's not going to know what to read other than the link destination. So it's warning me that I have some links that are on the page that don't actually describe where they're going. And then here, this color contrast. You can see there are 117 color contrast issues. Man, we got a lot of work ahead of us. But the good news is when we fix it, if we're fixing it with CSS styling, when you fix it in one place, it fixes it everywhere. So just fixing 1 or 2 different settings in your CSS will make all of these errors go away. And then alerts, suspicious alternative text. So this is bringing your attention to, this is letting me know, hey, this alternative text doesn't look like it's actually describing it, and it's not. The alternative text on this image is image 230928. So thank you, Wave, for bringing my attention to that. And the reason that this is important for us is because HubSpot defaults to adding the alt text to what the file name is. And if you don't fix that, if you don't update that, when a person using assistive technology gets to the image, it's not very helpful to read image 230928. Orphaned form labels. This is something that we will not be able to control. It's actually not even showing me where it is. HubSpot does have some issues with forms. We'll talk about that when we get to that section. Skipped heading level, this is interesting. This is one really for the content developer. So the skipped heading level, design-wise, I wanted this accessible demo to be my H1 because for SEO purposes and just font-wise, I wanted it to be that size. And then this one right here, I wanted it to be smaller, so that's an H4. Well, if I'm only using heading tags for the style, the visual styles of them, I'm not taking into account how people with disabilities might be using those to navigate a web page for cognitive reasons or simply for screen reader access. Screen reader access, we'll get into this a little bit later. It's looking at these headings and saying, oh, this isn't just descriptive text. This must be a heading of a section, and it's not. So we'll talk about how that can actually be fixed. Redundant link, suspicious link, redundant text title. So this brings your attention to a bunch of errors. And we're not going to go and remediate these things just on this direction, because next I want to look at the same type of report that we get from Axe DevTools. If you, so Axe is produced by DQ. You might know DQ if you're familiar as DQ University. They have a university that teach people all about these things. They have a guided course where at the end of it, you come out and then get IAAP certified, which is the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, IAAP. So Axe is this incredible organization. And they have this DevTools that is a Chrome extension. If you click this link, it's going to take you to the page where it shows, here's the free extension. if you want a pro version, a paid version, and I'll talk about the benefits of the paid versions here. But I've already got this Chrome extension installed, and what that allows me to do is inspect a page. And then in my inspecting tools, if I go to Axe DevTools, now we're looking at Axe DevTools. And I'd mentioned the paid version. The paid version lets me scan specific parts of a page. It does guided remediations that say these are common issues. Let's test the keyboard navigability of your website. Let's test how modals are interacted with. I can't access these with a free account. All I can do is scan my page, and we're going to do that here now. When I scan, it's going to pick up all those different issues and now organize them in a different way. So where Wave told me I had, I think, 117 issues, Axe is telling me I have 209. And they're itemized out here. So I'm going to zoom in. Itemized out saying element must only use allowed ARIA attributes. There's one instance of that. Element must have sufficient color contrast, 168 issues of that. ID value must be unique. And if I click on each of these, it's going to take me to where it's finding that component. And clicking highlight brings it down. So this is showing me, I think maybe because I'm zoomed in, it's not showing up here. There it is. So there's a little pink highlight there on the right. And when I look down here at the details, it's showing me, there's something here that says Grammarly desktop integration. The ARIA label that it's using is not appropriate. I don't actually have to worry about that because this is on my browser only. That's my Grammarly instance. This will also catch this HubSpot icon up here. Nobody visiting the website needs to worry about this being accessible or that being accessible. Zoom back in here. Next, we have element with insufficient color contrast. Great. So I've got the ability to click through. That headline is not high enough color contrast. That body copy is not high enough color contrast. This copy, that copy. So it's running through. And again, when I fix one of these, it's going to fix all of them. When I fix that gray and make it more accessible, it's going to fix it for all of these. And that 168 is going to turn into a 0. ID attribute value must be unique. So this isn't a false positive, but I, as a HubSpot user, know that the ID attribute on this thing, which is, looking at the code, HSCOS wrapper. I don't think that's it. Yeah, it's the space, the ID here. So HSCOS wrapper module spacer. So this ID is on a spacer right here, and it's on a spacer over here on the other side. I know assistive technology is never going to need to read that ID. It's never going to jump to that. So I could ignore this. I really do wish that these tools gave me the ability to set this to ignore or mark as resolved. And then moving down here, links must have discernible text. Again, it's showing you those icons that there's no text inside of those links. Links with the same name have similar purpose, meaning this link says read now. This link says read now. This link says read now. This is asking me to confirm that they're all going to the same place. Because if somebody using assistive technology finishes reading through a page and says, okay, I want to jump back to that link that I remember reading at the top of the page that said read now, well, if all three of these are on here, they're not going to know which one to pick. So bringing our attention to that. And then again, heading levels should increase by 1. So this is showing me issues that are being picked up. And then not only does it show where the issue is, it also says how to resolve it. Heading order invalid. And there are often articles that it'll click out to. So if you need to learn more about like, well, what's the problem? You're telling me this. But this is a slow research process where as you're made aware of issues, you need to go and figure out if it's worth addressing. Now this page right here, this moricreative.com/ally-demo runs through a bunch of issues that we just looked at or that were found by those testing tools. So we're going to look at color contrast. We're going to look at link style issues, hover issues, link context. And we're going to go through and fix these things now. So issue number 1, color contrast. For us to figure out if we have color contrast issues, all I need to do is sample this green that was warned and test the color contrast ratio. So the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, identifies that for headlines, we need a 3-to-1 ratio for color contrast. I don't know how to do the math of what the color contrast is of this green to that white, but they're telling me it needs to be 3-to-1. For body copy, it needs to be, or copy that's smaller than 24 pixels, it needs to be 4.5-to-1. And then for icons, it also needs to be just like the headlines 3-to-1. The way that we can test this is by using a color picker. That's the picture we have here on the right. You can add a Chrome extension. I use this color pick eyedropper. And by selecting that, when I hover over anything, you can see how it's picking up the colors. So if I grab this green right here, when I click, I can now copy this color, either the hexadecimal code or the RGB code. I'm going to take that green and I'm going to go into a color contrast checker. I use Polypane, but there are dozens of them out there. Clicking that opens this in a new window. And this is Polypane. So in Polypane, if I paste my hexadecimal color right here, that's my green. And it's showing me on top of a white, we've got a 2.95 to 1 ratio. Okay, so it's not high enough contrast, but Polypane also says, if you want to get to a 3 to 1 ratio, why don't you use this green? So for headlines, I can use that green. Or if I want to get to a 4.5 for body copy, yeah, let's be safe. Let's do that. Let's use that green. Now this green might be different than what your company brand is. And you might be so far off with this green that somebody's going to have a problem with you updating it. There needs to be a bit of a concession and an understanding why we need to adjust our colors. And if this isn't the color you want to use, I just copied that there. Then we'll come in here and find a different green. Okay, how about this one? Great. Is that a little bit better? So again, not reaching that 4.5 to 1 ratio, but you'll need to make some concessions there. So this is the green that I'm going to use. But you know what? I'm testing that against white. If I go back to this page, there are actually some gray boxes that I use pretty consistently through my site that I want to check that my green is high enough contrast. So not only am I going to check this against white, let's also say I'm going to set the standard to check it against the gray. Grab my original green again. Okay, there we go. So if I'm using a headline on top of that gray box, this is the green that I'm going to need. So what I can do is copy that. That copies the RGB value. I prefer, like I said, to use this hexadecimal. So I'm taking that green and I'm going to go and find anywhere that my headlines, I think this is an H2, is green. I'm going to inspect this just to confirm. Yeah, that's an H2. So I'm going to find anywhere that my H2s are in my CSS. So this is where you'll need a developer. If you're not comfortable going into the design manager tools in HubSpot, you'll need to find your CSS files or have somebody do it for you. And here's the CSS file that I've set up just for that specific page. And here we go. H1 is going to be green, H2. So this is that old green that's wrong. Now what I can do is find and replace. So anywhere we see that 748187, I can then replace it with my new value right there. And it's also worth pointing out that we use, this is actually the wrong green. So we use these libraries of colors. So we set headline color 1, and then I can use headline color 2, headline color 2, headline color 2, body color 1, body color 1. So just wanted to point that out. So that allows us to then update it in that one specific area. I might have the wrong color in there. Okay, so I'm gonna do that find and replace, replacing all there. Those are now green, and when I update that. So this might not actually update immediately. I'll need to get a preview here. Let's do that real quick. Previews update the CSS much faster. Okay, I did update the wrong one. It's actually headline color 1 that needs to be that green, so I'll go back and fix that. And again, you're going to go through and find everywhere that those colors are used and replace that color that way. And now refreshing my page, my greens are much darker. I don't know if you noticed the difference there, but if we test this, I also have a Chrome extension that lets me do it immediately here. When I go over Fontanello, I can see that it's a 5.04, which is AAA compliant. Perfect. Okay, let's do the same thing with the gray. What we'll do is use our color picker. Let's see if I can find a bigger gray. There we go. So taking that gray, jumping back here, we're going to test this gray against that light gray. And this is the recommended color for a 4.5 for body copy. You also notice in Polypane that this is letting me know this is large enough for large text or high enough contrast for large text. For normal text, it is not. So this is letting me know right there. And for icons, it is not, or it is. Okay, I don't want that value. I'm going to take this RGB, paste it in there. Again, grab that hexadecimal code, come back here, and now headline color 2. I want to be this new version. So I am seeing that that gray is there and here as well. Okay, refreshing, and my gray just got a little bit darker. If I inspect that, we're seeing that I've got a 5.02 to 1 ratio, so good to go. So there we go. That's how you can update your colors to be higher contrast. And then when we take this back into the testing tools, we're not going to have all of those color contrast issues. Issue number 2, link style. So I've got links that are set up by our designer maybe that says, I don't like that underline. We're in the future. People know that links are links. So all we're going to do is have a color change. So this link style here that goes from a bright blue to a bright pink is actually inaccessible. For someone who's colorblind, those two colors are identical. So I have no idea that anything is changing. What the Wcag requires is that we have, in addition to color as an indicator, also some other effect. Color can't be the only thing that indicates change. So you'll notice that what I've done here is just add that underline back in. If you don't want the underline on links, just add it so when you hover over it and the hover effect, it's got an underline for the text decoration. So if you understand CSS, when you have your A, here's the basic styling that I have saying text decoration, underline, and then on hover, text decoration disappears. So that will make that a little bit more accessible right there. Now, lumped together with link styling, we also have focus. Focus means if I'm not using a mouse, if I'm using assistive technology, maybe I'm navigating with my keyboard or again with a switch or other assistive technologies that don't let me use a mouse. When I get to this, I don't have the ability to hover over a link with my mouse. So if I hit the tab key, in the bottom left, you can see where we're trying to link to. That should be in focus. If I hit the tab key again, now you'll see that link down here is in focus. I'll actually keep going. And you can see the different links that are going into focus as I hit tab. And the way that that's achieved is, in addition to your hover style, you just simply need to add in a comma and then a focus. And now, anytime that a link is in focus, or any element that is stylized differently whenever it is hovered over, should be stylized the same way whenever it's in focus. So to do that, you go back into your CSS file, you simply do a find for hover. So this right here, I've got a hover. I'm going to copy that, put a comma, paste it, and change this to focus. And now this styling is going to be applied anytime someone is this link is in focus, just like it would be if it was hovered over. So if that's not something you are in the habit of doing as you're designing, as you're developing, it's just important to do after you're done as an accessibility audit, to then spend some time going through and adding a focus style anywhere you have a hover style. Okay, moving right along, link context. I think a lot of people are guilty of this. If you look through this article here or this paragraph here, when we get to this link here will only read as here. So yes, as a sighted person, as a sighted user, I know the context because I just read to get up to there. But if I were using assistive technology to only look at the links on a page, here is not a very descriptive piece of information. When possible, use these more descriptive texts, like find a block of text that describes what that link is supposed to do for you. It doesn't have to be, horribly explicit, but make sure that you're linking something more than just click here. Here is not good enough. Another example of this is, or a way around this, if you don't want to use bigger text, like for example, a buy now button, I can't necessarily change this button to read buy boots now, buy sneakers now, buy loafers now, though that would be very accessible. If you can't add that in, we've got a recommendation here for a safe display none. And we can put text in there that says boots right in the middle of those two words, but make it visually disappear. So when assistive technology gets to it, it reads properly, but whenever someone's looking at it, it still just appears as buy now. And the way that we do that, here's a before and after. So this right here, this boots, that might be an H5. And then the link with the class of buy now says buy now. And then what we're going to do, here's an after. Inside of that buy now, we add a span with a class of AT only, assistive technology only. So a class of AT only, and we're going to add boots in there. And the reason why this is effective is if you're using tokens that are saying product name here, well, you can just add product name there and it's going to be used universally and always read buy boots now, buy sneakers now, buy loafers now. And the CSS for that safe display none, that AT only, we've got it right here. Come to this website and steal this. This right here puts it, whatever text it is at 1 pixel high, puts it 99,000 pixels off to the left-hand side, height of 0 pixels, so it makes it disappear, but assistive technology can still see it. So what we're going to do in this demo here is we're going to take these read now links and we're going to add the name of the article. Read what are pieces of an effective inbound marketing strategy now, and that's going to tuck right in there. So what I'm going to do, jumping back into my design manager, this is the template for that specific page. I hope you're familiar with this layout here, but we've got the header in the top, the header hero image there, and then a couple sections. So the color contrast section, here's the link style and hover effect. Here's the link context. So the link context, recent blog posts. I'm going to edit this module right here. That's what's pulling in these blog posts. To do so, more, edit module source code. Okay, so here's the code. If you're not familiar with this, don't be too intimidated. Let me zoom in a little more here. In this for loop, so as it runs through and says we want 3 different articles to appear in the for loop, this code is identical, and it says pull the featured image in the H4, what is the post name, the description, and then the link. So instead of read now, what I want this to do is read post name now. So publishing that, refreshing this page, these should now say read what are the pieces of an effective inbound marketing strategy now. Great, so that's going to read it properly to assistive technology, but now let's hide it. I've already added this AT only style to my CSS file. So what I'm going to do here is wrap this in a span with a class equals AT only. Okay, and that class equals AT only is going to hide those words visually, but still leave them there for assistive technology. Publishing that. Refresh, and there we go. So this says read now visually, but if I inspect it, we can see this link says read the name of the article now. Ta-da. That AT only will come in handy a little bit later in this demo and in a few different places while you explore other solutions. Actually, it's right here. So next, we've got icon labels. A very popular font or icon library is Font Awesome. Font Awesome allows you to really quickly search through their whole massive library of icons, and with a simple little line of code that looks something like this, make these icons appear. But the problem is, this icon doesn't have a description. So there's something called ARIA, the ARIA library, where there's a bunch of different things that you can add to HTML, like an ARIA described by, an ARIA label, an ARIA hidden. This ARIA label is a way to add a description to that icon. So taking the code from Font Awesome, simply inserting an ARIA label equals Facebook, that icon now will be described to somebody with assistive technology saying exactly what the icon is. There's a little bit of a problem though with that. If this icon is inside of a link, just like these are, well, there's still no text, even though that icon has a description, and it's going to be delivered fine for assistive technology, but when you're using audited tools, it's going to still show as an error because there's no text that's inside of it. Just to get that error to go away, if that's important to you, again, we can use inside of the icon, instead of adding an ARIA label, that span class equals AT only, and now assistive accessibility checkers will say, oh, there is text inside of that icon. It says Facebook. So again, you can use that AT only to add text inside of the icon that is not going to be visible. Moving right along, this one's really straightforward. Image descriptions, like I said before, if we were to edit this page and add in an image, it's going to automatically pull in the description based on the file name. Okay, so here's that image right there. When I click on it, automatically this sets alt text to the file name, and it's our job to change this to something like HubSpot image module, automatically pulling file name as alt text. Now that might seem long. That might seem much longer than you're used to for applying alt text, but think about alt text as the way you're communicating with somebody who can't physically see your image. So when they get to it, it needs to be described. And I like to say, when writing alt text, describe it as if you were describing an image over the phone to somebody. But I also want to warn not to take that advice too far, because for somebody who is not sighted and they're visiting a website, you don't want them to have to sit through a 20-minute description when they get to an image. So use your discretion, appreciate people's time, and don't go over the top with your image descriptions. I'm not going to publish those changes, but moving right along, heading order. We covered this in the beginning. We cannot use H tags for their style attributes alone. So right here in this section, if I were to look under the hood, this is an H2. You know why? Because I already checked that before, and all of these issue heading sections were set to an H2. If I look there, yep, it's an H2. And then I wanted this first paragraph or this first sentence to be stylized similar to an H4. So we can see it right here, it's an H4. And even this pull quote right here, this is an H2 as well with a smaller font size because I wanted to use those color and font attributes. But if I'm using assistive technology, say I'm on a shopping page, and this is a page that's different phones, different types of phone devices. And as I go through, I realize it says H1 iPhone. I'm sorry, let's do like an H3. H3 iPhone, H3 Samsung Galaxy, H3 Motorola, whatever. So I start to realize, oh, okay, every product is being organized by the H3s on the page. But if I'm also then using an H3 here for a pull quote, this is not the heading that is of the same level of those other product pages or product links. So with that in mind, we can use headings. We can use the styles of headings without actually using the H tags. And that's what we have on the right-hand side. This is your typical CSS styling for headings. This will look familiar. H1, font size, margin, H2, H3. So these are set everywhere we use an H1. But if you simply want to, you can simply add in a comma and then create a class here called, or I want that font size and I want those margin, all those other style attributes. I want those for an H1, but let's apply it to a heading, make a heading 1 class. And once these commas with heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 have all been added in, now instead of this being an H1 and this being an H4, we can set it to an H1 and a P class, or a P tag with a class of heading 4. So now we get those heading 4 attributes, but we still leave it as a P class. If for some reason you don't have the ability to go this route and actually use this as a P whenever it needs to be an H, you also can leave it as an H, but if you simply add in role equals none, doing that lets assistive technology know this isn't a heading. There's a role of heading. So if we had a P, it could say role heading, and it would assume that it's a heading. If you do go the role heading route, you'll need to also add in an ARIA level for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, moving right along. Form labels. I'd mentioned this is a common issue. I've got right down here, it's a little light, but I've got right down here a subscribe form. And inside there, it says email address. But if I were to check this in with a screen reader, when it gets there, it's not going to know what this field is for. Screen readers don't read the preview text as the label. There needs to be a label. So this is another situation where we're supposed to leave that label on. And design-wise, if you want it removed, we can use that CSS class that's a safe display none. But instead of using the class, we're going to target that specific element. So let's take a look at that. I think we're already editing this page. So here's the form. Oh, you know what? I got to go into the form section. Okay, so editing this form right here, you can see we're using this email address, but the label has been removed so that it isn't physically above there, and there is some placeholder text. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and copy that and paste it in here. So now email address is back. When I update this, we've now put it right back for assistive technology to read. And then we're gonna go and target it and hide it with CSS instead of just hiding it by deleting it. So again, to figure out what you're targeting, if you right click on here, so I've got email address highlighted and I inspect, this is where you can find the class. So div class, HS email right there. And it's the label inside of that class that we're hiding. So HS email, label, and then inside of our CSS, I think I might already have this. I don't have it built out yet. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, add that in, and then it's the same style attributes here for that safe display none. And now when I publish this, we're finding that class. Any labels inside of that class will disappear. Going back to our form. And there we go. So we achieve the same thing. We've removed the label, but it's still there for assistive technology. 2 more to go. And this is the fun stuff right here. We're doing landmarks, and we're going to be doing skip to links. If you don't know what a skip to link is, a skip to link, as I described in the beginning of this conversation, gives people the ability to jump over that block of content that might be a navigation. But in order to have a skip to link, there need to be landmarks on a page. And if I zoom out here, scrolling up to the top, this whole section up here, that's a landmark of a banner. You know, this whole section here, that is this title, and then all of the content, this is the main content of a page. When we get to the form, this is a landmark of a form. It could be a search form or a contact form. And then at the way bottom, this whole section is a landmark of content info. It's a footer, but it needs to be set as content info. So in order to set these different landmarks, banner, navigation, main, content info, etc., in order to do that, back there in the design manager, on the right-hand side, there's a styling option section with a wrapping HTML. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some code in there to wrap it and set an ID. So going back here to my template, this whole section right here, this is the banner. And if I were to actually jump into this, I think I've got it set. Yeah. So this whole section across the top, we wrap it by putting this HTML that's saying any of the content here goes in the HTML. And we can wrap it now with a div. And that div has a role of banner and an ID of banner. The role is what's going to read to assistive technology, banner. The ID is what lets you jump to it because it's got an ID. If you're familiar with anchor links, that ID is what's used. So zooming out a bit, not that much, I want to wrap this hero image and then all of these modules, all of this stuff. I want to wrap it just like we did right there. And in fact, I'm going to copy that. But in order to wrap it, these all need to be inside of a group. So I'm going to go to the bottom. Excuse me. I'm selecting each of these by hitting Command and clicking. It's actually not that. It's a whole section. Okay. And now that these are all selected, over here I can group them. So we see they've now been grouped. And on this one grouped object, inside of this wrapping HTML, if you hover over this, it gives a little explanation of what you're doing. I'm going to paste in that div role equals banner, but we're going to change this to main. ID equals main. HTML, done. Now that'll work. I also happen to know that there's an HTML element called main. So it doesn't need to be a div. This can be a main. And that alone would say we don't even need to have that role. It's a main. We've already declared that. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that in for good measure. So we've got main, role equals main, ID equals main. Going back to that form, we're going to make this a landmark as well. So this section, I could do it directly on the form, but whatever section you select, that's where your viewport will scroll to. So I'm going to do it on this wrapper right here. Pasting this again here. This time our role is going to be form, and our ID is going to be form. There we go. Okay, so now assistive technology knows that there are a couple landmarks that are on this page. I don't think we came across them when looking at the ACTS report, but that is something that it'll flag and say, hey, there are no landmarks on this page. ACTS also flags, hey, there's no skip to links. I guess it's such a common and useful component that it actually checks to make sure that something like that exists. To build the skip to links, jumping back here, we've established our landmarks. And once that those are in there, we can build our skip to links. And a skip to link, we've already covered this, that you need the ID main. So a skip to link is simply a link in the top of a page that says our destination is that hashtag main, hashtag form, hashtag footer. So to build this out, it's a module that isn't a universal module that's going to go inside of the header, because that would mean that we would have to have the same skip to links on every page. And the fact is, you don't have a search form or a contact form on every page of your website. So you'll need to set this one by one on the individual page. But if I take this module and I edit the module source code, we can see how it's built. So it's a for loop. You could just have that text flowing through there. Copy that text. These are the links. You could just have that, but we're using a for loop, which is going to allow people to pop in what the block ID is and what the text that should be visible is. So this is that code. Zooming in. I'll actually even add this to the article so you can pull it if you want to do that, but you want to make sure that you're also adding in this content block ID and this text field over here. Once these are set, then on the page, when we edit it, we now have a module called Skip to Links for Accessibility. When I select that, our module is set up so that you can control for your brand purposes what the button color is, what the button text color is. And I've already got a field grouping here for footer just by default. I'm going to add another one. And the prompt is saying, well, what is the ID that you want to jump to? So main is that first one that we set up. And then what do we want the link to appear as? Skip to main content. And I'm going to add in another one for that search form or for that contact form. That one is called form. That's what we're jumping to. And then just looking in this footer one here that was previously set up, it's jumping to footer and it's going to say skip to footer. Now this is the order that they would appear in. I'm actually going to move footer to be last. So we've got main, form, then footer, apply changes, update page. Okay, so what that just did is it added those 3 links up here hidden on the page. And the reason that it's hidden, if I can scroll down again, is our CSS. Here we go. Our CSS is over here on the right-hand side. Anytime we have a link that has a class of skip to, which we used right there, we're going to set it to be, again, off 1,000 pixels to the left-hand side, position absolute, height of 1 pixel, width of 1 pixel. And then as soon as that element is in focus or active, as soon as it's in focus, it's going to appear. So we've got it set to a width of 30. Different height has been set, 30%. And now that we've turned those on, if I hit tab, refreshing this page, if I hit the tab key, you see that link pop up, skip to main content. I hit tab again, skip to the form. Hit tab again, skip to the footer. If I hit tab again, that now takes me to the logo and then to the navigation. If I hit shift tab, that takes me back. All right, I'm on skip to form. When I hit enter, look, we scroll down and now I'm on the form. So I just allowed somebody to quickly jump to the form on a page without having to tab through every single piece of content that's on that page. I just refreshed again, hitting tab. If I hit skip to main, you can't see it, but my focus just jumped over all of this content because I've already gone through the navigation. I don't need these components. I know where I need to go. And now I'm right here. When I hit tab, I'm already here on the main content. So we've built in those skip to links. And again, it's not going to be universal. You shouldn't just say, give me a skip to main. I see that a lot of times. That's not enough. You want to let people also skip to your footers. You don't need to skip to banner because often your skip to links are inside of your banner. So you don't necessarily need to do that, but you do want to set that as a landmark with role equals banner. So. And with that, we are done. Again, I'm sharing links to these because I want you to share these with your developers, share these with your designers, have them get familiar with how we can fix these 10 pretty straightforward things. I hope this wasn't too heavy. We can jump out of there, jumping back. And I'm actually coming back here to share these links. In the chat. So those are a few links. Oh, that does not appear great. I'll do those as separate items in a moment. So the recording will be on that hub page. I want you to take that recording, share it with your designers, share it with your developers, share the link to that ally/dash demo webpage right there and see if they can go through and actually address these things. Something else that I wanted to mention, as we're wrapping up here and, as we get into questions as far as these resources are concerned, going back to inclusion, one of the founding members there, Salesforce, I mentioned Thomas over there, they are doing something incredible for October. October coming up is the National Disability Employment Awareness Month, this year with a theme of America's recovery powered by inclusion. And what Salesforce is doing is anybody inside their organization, Salesforce is a very large organization, anybody who identifies as a person with a disability, talking about their firsthand experience of being employed and what it's like to have a disability and be employed. They're going to be publishing those articles all throughout the month, celebrating the ideas there, and they're going to be publishing those articles on Inclusion Hub. So I encourage you to go over to Inclusion Hub, subscribe there, so you can get a little bit more familiar with people with disabilities and kind of what they get to do, what they deal with on a daily basis. I also did want to mention that Inbound is coming up October 12th, 13th, and 14th. So if you've never attended Inbound, you want to make sure that that is certainly worth the resources, the time. Thank you, Sage. I see you broke those into a more digestible link section there. But yeah, Inbound is great coming up in mid-October there. So, and with that, I know that was long. I know that was rough. I don't see any questions here in the chat, in the Q&A. So if there are any questions, now would be the time. If there's nothing coming to mind right now, you're gonna, as you address these things, you're gonna come across issues that you have questions. You can contact More Creative about this stuff. We have built out an entire guide to the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, an entire guide talking about exactly what each WCAG success criteria does. And in the comments on those, people leave questions and say, I don't understand this, or how would you address that? Or you can contact us directly and say, hey, I'm trying to address this thing. I saw your demo. I didn't fully understand this. Can you help me out? And we have a team of incredible, very compassionate, very helpful designers and developers on the More Creative team. We would be happy to connect with you and, just on a screen share, run through and help make your websites more accessible. This is not about making money for anybody. It's about doing our part and making HubSpot the most accessible ecosystem out there. So if you're managing your website on HubSpot, we want to help you make it more accessible. So find us at morecreative.com. Reach out to us. Again, find that guide, the WCAG guide. Got a question from Brian. Can you explain an accessibility overlay? Great question. What we just talked about there in that demo is fixing on a granular level, on the code level, the authentic code of your website to make it more accessible. There are businesses out there who saw an opportunity saying, hey, look at all these lawsuits. We want to go and make money off of individual businesses by fixing websites with an overlay. An overlay essentially gets added to a website and tries to fix those things like color contrast, like font size, alt descriptions. They try to do it without affecting the actual code. It's a very controversial topic because it's been proven that not only do they not do what they claim, they're also often cited in lawsuits and present additional barriers to people with disabilities. It's not funny. When you add on something, an overlay to your website, thinking you're making your website more accessible, for the person who actually uses assistive technology, it doesn't do it. It appears like it does to you because, hey, look at this control panel, look at these widgets, I can make my fonts bigger, and man, I'm doing my good part, and what a great signal to the world. When in reality, somebody who uses assistive technology to navigate the world gets to the website and they have a worse experience than they would had you not added this overlay on top. So that's a great question, Brian. It's a warning. Do not get sucked into believing that this widget that only costs $500 a year can fix all of my accessibility problems, and I don't have to make my colors compliant. I don't have to add captions to my videos. These overlays do not actually fix the things. And every single one of them, there are a bunch of them. You can find them all in the Inclusion Hub directory. The reason they're in the Inclusion Hub directory is because people have the opportunity to leave their negative reviews and say, don't use this thing, don't be fooled. But there are every single one of them. You'll go to their website and I guarantee without fail, it will say, our widget, our overlay will make you 100% ADA compliant. And it's a lie. It's a flat out lie. Every single website says this widget will make your website accessible. And then the fine print, it says it will not. So thank you for bringing that up, Brian. That's a great question. And it's a rabbit hole that I got sucked down a few years ago when we first got introduced to accessibility. So it's something that I've admitted that I did wrong, and I now advise people against it. Okay, I know we had blocked off an hour and a half for this conversation. We can wrap this up a little bit early if there are no further questions. I appreciate you spending this time with us. I know people are suffering from webinar fatigue, so you can be selective as to what you are attending. I know I'm guilty of it as well. I register for things with the intention of maybe watching the video later, but this is a video that I do want you to share. And I do appreciate those who did come and join in and watch us live. Again, there's a webinar tomorrow from UsableNet if you want to attend that. The entire Hub Inbound conference is going to be webinars. It's all virtual. It's all online. Oh, I did want to point out Judith Heumann, who you might know if you saw the Crip Camp documentary on Netflix. She's one of the keynote speakers this year. She's a profound accessibility advocate. So even if you don't pay for the inbound tickets, go to the free version because you can, I believe there's a free pass. You can access her presentation there as a keynote speaker. So Judith Heumann, keep an eye out for her. That's really cool, really exciting. So, and with that, we're gonna wrap it up. I look forward to seeing you all after Inbound in Q4. We will have another great topic, probably not accessibility, probably not going too deep here, but I look forward to seeing you all then. And until then, have a great day. Love you all.